And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's corruption trial is to resume on Monday after a pause of over 2 months. The trial was scheduled to continue through October but was shelved after the October 7th attack when Israel's courts suspended regular activity following the attack by Hamas militants on Israel. Netanyahu's trial will continue despite the war as the courts return to normal work in December. Designated as many cases as 4,000, Netanyahu's trial will take up charges against him of enabling regulatory steps to benefit Bezeq Telecommunications in exchange for favorable media coverage on the Walla website, formerly owned by Bezeq. Well, the court will hear in the coming days testimonies of the cases. 4,000 investigators, 50 other witnesses will also testify in the trial that has been ongoing for 4 years now. Apart from case 4,000, Netanyahu has a few more cases against him. Let us now give you a short history of these cases. Well, in 2019, Attorney General Avichai Mandelblit filed criminal charges against Netanyahu in 3 investigations known as Case 1000, 2000 and 4000. In Case 1000, Netanyahu and his wife Sarah, they both are accused of receiving gifts including champagne and cigars from prominent Hollywood actors and also producer Arnold Milchan and Australian billionaire businessman James Parker in return for political favors. Well, in Case 2000, Netanyahu is accused of negotiating a deal with Israel's best-selling daily newspaper. All this for favorable coverage in exchange for legislative actions against a rival newspaper. Netanyahu has also been accused of trying to pilot legislation to avoid his own legal problems. The last few months have seen demonstrations in the country against the judicial reform bill that would allow the government to appoint more members to a committee that oversees appointees to the Supreme Court. Well, this would potentially give Netanyahu the power to pack the court with more friendly judges. As the trial gets underway, members of Netanyahu's party have accused the timing of it specifically. Well, a minister in the Justice Ministry and Likud member wrote on X, and I'm quoting here, war, ? Hostages, evacuees, the economy, no and no. What's most important now is to engage the Prime Minister of Israel with the unfounded allegations and delusional issues, unquote. And for more on this, joining us live on the broadcast is the correspondent Jody Cohen. Hi, Jody. Right, Jody, I want to start by asking that what can you tell us about the visit of the ICC prosecutor to Israel and Ramallah at the moment?
Right, so Karim Khan has visited Israel and Ramallah. Palestinian human rights groups said that he's favoured Israeli claims of human rights abuses since the 7th of October attack. For example, they're saying that's because he said the IDF knows international law must be applied, has trained lawyers who advise the commanders, and a robust system intended to ensure compliance. Now, Khan visited the scenes, I should say, of the 7th of October attack and said that the attack was, quote, represented some of the most serious international crimes that shock the conscience of humanity. And as a result of those comments and that visit, Palestinian groups have refused to even meet him.
Yes, Jody, and also with the fighting intensifying in Gaza, are talks still taking place to try to agree a further pause in fighting?
Right, so of course, remember on Friday, Hamas refused to release the women and child hostages, and there are thought to be around 130 still held in captivity in Gaza, including 20 women, 2 children under the ages of 18, including a 10-month-old baby, and 10 people aged 75 and over. And you can see some of the faces behind me here. Now, as that truce deadline approached, Hamas fired rockets at Israel, and the Israel Defense Forces declared that the pause was over and has carried out airstrikes against Hamas targets in response. Since then, we've seen numerous rockets fired at Israel. We've seen the ground offensive in Gaza expand to southern Gaza. Israel says it's created a map to help civilians avoid the fighting zones and to receive humanitarian medical treatment, and that they're working with the UN and with aid organisations to protect humanitarian workers and set up more field hospitals. But Egypt has said that the truce talks are ongoing. Qatar has said that they're still committed to these truce efforts. But meanwhile, we have seen rockets and drone activity from Iranian-backed groups in Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, and from the Houthis in Yemen over the past few days. So the fighting is still very much ongoing.
Rajori, my last question to you. On top of all of this, with the war raging between Israel and the Hamas militants, Netanyahu's corruption trial is set to resume today. What's being said on the ground about that?
Right, so there's been this 2-month pause in this trial since Hamas's 7th of October attack, and that's because the courts have just been working on an emergency-only basis, only dealing with the urgent cases. The courts are now returning to their regular activity, and so will carry out due process. We've heard from Regional Cooperation Minister David Salem, who's opposed to the timing of this. He suggested that it's ridiculous, in his words, to distract the Prime Minister now with absurd testimonies. Netanyahu, we know, won't have to actually attend the hearings over the next few months. He, of course, faces charges of corruption, fraud and breach of trust. His supporters are saying that he didn't break the law, he didn't receive benefits, and that the charges are aimed to defeating him politically. Meanwhile, there are 50 witnesses who are due to be cross-examined, but this case is going to go on over the coming months, if not years.
All right, Jody, thanks very much for joining us and sharing insights with us on the story.